The first modern Olympic Games were held in Athens in 1896. Athens, considered the birthplace of the Olympic Games, has a rich historical and cultural heritage. The events were held at the Panathenaic Stadium, which was the site of the ancient games.
The second Olympic Games in history were held in 1900 in Paris, which is known for its rich history, culture, and art. Unfortunately, the organization of this event was very chaotic, which caused the Games to last 5 months. For the first time, women also took part in the Games, competing in tennis and golf.
The next Olympics took place in the USA in 1904. The Games were part of the World's Fair in St. Louis, which had an impact on their organization and execution. The participation of foreign athletes was very limited. It was there that medals for the first 3 places were awarded for the first time.
The 1908 Games were held in London, known for its landmarks and seen as one of the world's largest financial centers. It was in London that the Olympic Village was first established, and athletes proudly began to use their own national flags. The Games were also a time of political tension between the United States and Great Britain.
The year 1912 was the year of the Olympic Games in Stockholm, Sweden, known mainly for its beautiful architecture. These were games considered well-organized and fair. It was in Stockholm that such disciplines as the pentathlon and decathlon debuted.
In 1920, the Games were held in Antwerp, Belgium. These were the first Games after World War I, without the participation of Germany and its allies. The Olympic flag and Olympic oath were introduced. The Games were intended to be reconciliatory after the devastation of war.
In 1924, Paris once again had a chance to host the Games. This time they took advantage of it. They were much better organized than the previous Olympics in France. These were the first Games broadcast on radio.
In Amsterdam, in 1928, the Olympic flame was lit for the first time, and the Olympic anthem was played. They also introduced women's athletics, which was a significant step forward in gender equality in sports. They also introduced many innovations and traditions that continue to this day.
In 1932, the Games returned to the United States, but this time to Los Angeles, known for its entertainment industry and vibrant culture. The Americans again dominated the Games with a small number of athletes from other countries. However, the Games were a financial success, despite being held during the Great Depression.
The 1936 Games were held in Berlin, known for its significant political and cultural influence. They were the first Games to be broadcast live on television. They were dominated by Nazi propaganda, but are best remembered for the performance of Jesse Owens, who won 4 gold medals, dispelling the myth of racial superiority.
In 1948, the Games returned to London. These were the first Games after World War II, organized very economically, symbolizing a global recovery. Germany and Japan were not invited.
In 1952, Helsinki hosted the Games. These Olympics marked the debut of Israel, the Soviet Union, and China, which began the Cold War rivalry in the sports arena. Helsinki at that time was strongly influenced by the Soviet Union.
The next Olympics were held in Melbourne, Australia in 1956. Some countries boycotted the Games in protest of the Soviet invasion of Hungary and the conflict in the Middle East. One of the infamous symbols of the Games is the water polo match between the Soviet Union and Hungary, known as the Blood in the Water game.
The 1960 Games were held in Rome, rich in history and culture, providing a stunning backdrop for the Games. It was there that the star of Cassius Clay, aka Muhammad Ali, was born. The Games also saw the first appearance of athletes from independent African countries and the use of electronic timing.
The year 1964 was the Tokyo Olympics, a rapidly modernizing city showcasing Japan's post-war recovery. These were the first Games in Asia. They introduced disciplines such as judo and volleyball. They are primarily associated with the spectacular performances of Japanese athletes.
In 1968, the Games were held in Mexico City. The events were dominated by political protests, including the famous Black Salute by African-American sprinters Tommy Smith and John Carlos. It was then that drug tests were introduced for the first time.
The 1972 Munich Olympics are primarily marked by tragic events related to the terrorist attack on Israeli athletes. The famous words, "The Games must go on," by Avery Brundage, the president of the IOC, meant that the competition would continue despite the fact that many athletes had left the Games. The whole world criticized this decision.
1976 is the Olympic Games in Canada, in Montreal. These games were burdened with high costs, which the city paid off for many years. African countries boycotted the Games in protest against apartheid in South Africa.
The 1980 Olympic Games were held in Moscow, the capital of the Soviet Union, a key political and cultural hub. They were met with another boycott, this time by the US and other Western nations, in protest of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. They have been called the most political games in history.
In 1984, the Olympics returned to Los Angeles and again proved to be a huge financial success. In response to Moscow's boycott, the USSR and its allies did not participate in these games either. Thus, the political tussle between the Eastern Bloc countries and the United States continued.
The year 1988 saw the Games in South Korea, in Seoul, a vibrant capital city known for its rapid development and cultural heritage. These were the Games with the largest number of participants, which symbolized the end of the era of boycotts. However, they were also marked by a doping scandal.
Barcelona 1992 was the first Olympics after the fall of the USSR, with the participation of a unified team from the former Soviet Union. They became famous for their excellent organization. Many eyes were on the debut of professional NBA basketball players, known as the Dream Team.
After 12 years, in 1996, the Olympics returned to the United States, to Atlanta. They celebrated the 100th anniversary of the Olympic Games, but were criticized for their commercialization and logistical problems. Overshadowed by the Centennial Park bombing and remembered for the outstanding achievements of Michael Johnson, an American athlete.
The 2000 Olympic Games were held in Sydney, Australia, a coastal metropolis known for its iconic Opera House and Harbour Bridge. They were widely praised for the organization and the environmental focus. These are the Games of sports records. Athletes have improved or equaled world records 48 times.
2004 saw the return of the Games to their cradle, Athens. These Olympics were primarily the spectacular performances of Michael Phelps, who won 6 gold medals and set 4 world records. However, the Games were criticized for their high costs and delays in preparation.
The 2008 Olympics were a spectacular display of Chinese organization with an impressive opening ceremony. The main stars were once again Michael Phelps, who won 8 gold medals, and Usain Bolt, who dominated the sprints. The medal table was dominated by China, the host country.
In 2012, London became the first place to host the Olympics 3 times. They have become famous for their good organization, technological advancements, and media coverage. Meanwhile, Usain Bolt repeated his successes by winning more gold medals in sprints.
In 2016, the Games were held for the first time in South America, in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. New sports debuted, such as rugby and golf. The Brazilian football team won gold, which was a great success for the hosts, and Michael Phelps ended his career by winning another 5 gold medals.
Tokyo 2021 is the Games postponed from 2020 due to the global pandemic. They were held without an audience. Disciplines such as skateboarding and surfing debuted in Japan. They are associated with the outstanding achievements of American gymnast Simone Biles in discussions about the mental health of athletes.
The 2024 Paris Games will go down in history for their spectacular opening ceremony, which included the banks of the Seine River and the Champs-Élysées. The United States dominated the track and field events, and Simone Biles confirmed her legendary status by winning more medals.